Welcome again, third year students. We were doing the obituary, the elegy in the memory of W.B. Yeats by W.H. Auden. To continue with the poem, you were silly like us, your gift survived it all. The parish of rich women, physical decay, yourself, mad Ireland hurt you into poetry. Now Ireland has her madness and her weather still. For poetry makes nothing happen. It survives in the valley of its saying, where executives would never want to tamper. It flows south from ranches of isolation and the busy griefs, raw towns that we believe and die in. It survives a way of happening, a mouth. Now, here we can feel the sorrow of the poet, a sorrow of a poet for another poet. So, W.H. Auden feels sorrowful about the futile attempts done by W.B. Yeats. W.B. Yeats, he says that he was silly like us. Your gift survived it all. What was the gift of W.B. Yeats? His poetic art. So he says, you still bore everything. The parish of rich women. Now he is talking of his beloved for whom he put himself into the Irish movement. Physical decay, yourself, mad Ireland hurt you into poetry. Now the poet W.H. Auden says that W.B. Yeats, he wrote poetry for Ireland. But he says, even now Ireland has her madness and her weather still. Nothing really changed. Though W.B. Yeats gave his youth, his life, his energy, his vigor, his art of poetry, everything in order to improve the conditions in Ireland. But he says that W.B. Yeats lost everything, but Ireland did not gain anything. For poetry makes nothing happen. Now we see that W.H. Auden is hurt. He says poetry makes nothing happen. Nothing happens by poetry. They are merely words. It survives in the valley of its saying. Saying means it comprises of words. People don't practically apply it. Where executives would never want to temper, there is no execution of those thoughts. So he is very hurt, and he says that W.B. Yeats gave everything for the Irish movement, but he lost his health, but Ireland did not improve. It flows south. It means poetry. It flows south from the ranches of isolation and the busy griefs, raw towns that we believe and die in. It survives a way of happening, a mouth. He says that poetry survives only in recitation, not in its application. He is saying so because he feels very sad when he thinks that W.B. Yeats sacrificed his life for Ireland, but still he didn't get anything. Earth, receive an honored guest. William Yeats is laid to rest. Let the Irish vessel lie emptied of its poetry. Time that is intolerant of the brave and innocent, and indifferent in a weak to a beautiful physique. Worships language and forgives everyone by whom it lives. Pardons cowardice, conceit, lays its honors at their feet. Now, here we can feel the satiric tone behind the lines. Now, he is talking of the time of his burial. He is imploring earth to receive an honored guest. Now, the poet W.B. Yeats is about to be buried, and he says that earth should receive this guest in a very honorable manner, because this guest means the body of W.B. Yeats is a very honored guest. William Yeats is laid to rest. William Yeats is being laid to get eternal rest. Now he says, you see, notice the term Irish vessel. He is using these terms for Yeats. Now this is Irish vessel, means this body is Irish vessel, emptied of its poetry. Vessel means a ship. When you unload a ship, you can have a lot of goods. So he says, even this Irish vessel, the mind of Yeats, is now emptied of its poetry. As a lot of goods are contained in a vessel, in a ship, the same way W.B. Yeats' mind contained a lot of poetry. Now he says that time does not remember anyone. Time forgets everyone. Now, howsoever great he is. With time, people forget the brave people, people forget the innocent people, and they are indifferent in a week to a beautiful physique. Even when a person with beautiful physique die, nobody remembers him more than a week. Worships language and forgives everyone by whom it lives. Pardons cowardice. Now, notice the tone of satire. He says that time pardons cowardice. Means with time people forget even the cowardice, conceit, and lays its honors at their feet. So, he feels sorrowful that nobody will remember W.B. Yeats after his death. Only a few people will remember. Time that with this strange excuse pardoned Kipling and his views, and will pardon Paul Claudel. Pardons him for writing well. Now he says that people have forgotten Rudyard Kipling and his radical views. People will also forget Paul Claudel. He was a poet, Spanish poet, and people forgive these poets for writing well. Forgive here, pardon means he is talking in a satiric manner. People forget. In the nightmare of the dark, all the dogs of Europe bark. Now you notice the expression nightmare of the dark. The Second World War was impending and all the dogs of Europe were barking. Now the time of Yeats' death was terrible time. It was a terrible one. Whole Europe was turned into hatred, prejudice, and mistrust. So there was an atmosphere of the impending world war. And the living nations wait, each sequestered in its hate. Now it says the living nations. Living nations means those nations which survived even after the First World War. And what they are waiting? They are waiting for next World War. And they have been divided, sequestered in hatred. Instead of joining hands in love, they are divided in hatred. Intellectual disgrace stares from every human face, and the seas of pity lie locked and frozen in each eye. Now he is feeling sad that there is intellectual disgrace in every human face. Even after being intellectuals, people act disgracefully. And this is the irony of the modern age. And the seas of pity. Now, notice the beautiful image. There is a sea of pity in each pair of eyes, but that sea of pity, that sea of mercy is locked and frozen because people have become indifferent towards the sufferings of each other. Follow, poet, follow right to the bottom of the night. Now, here we see a ray of hope. He says, though nobody listens to poets, nobody follows the preachings of the poet, but still it is the duty of the poet to follow the right path. So he says, follow poet, follow right to the bottom of the night. Bottom of the night means even to the situation of doom, even to the most negative situations. You should follow the right path. With your unconstraining voice, still persuade us to rejoice. Now he says that the only thing we can rejoice is in poetry. So you should follow the right path. You should go on writing such poems which will inspire us, which will rejoice us. With the farming of a verse, make a vineyard of the curse. Sing of human unsuccess in a rapture of distress. In the deserts of the heart, let the healing fountain start. In the prison of his days, teach the free man how to praise. Now, he is here talking of the great duty, great moral obligation of poets. What do poets do? They can make a vineyard of curds. They can convert the negativity into positivity with the help of verses. Verses means poetry. Sing of human unsuccess in a rapture of distress. Now, sometimes he writes happy poems and sometimes he also writes of the failures and distress. In the desert of the heart, let the healing fountain start. Very beautiful positive imagery. He says that the hearts of human beings have been deserted, have been devoid of pity, devoid of compassion, and the only person who can start the fountain of improvement, fountain of humanity is the poet. In the prison of his days, prison of his days means the poet is living in the times in which the war is impending. There is a lot of human suffering. Still, he says, teach the free man how to praise. Still, the poet should teach the human beings how to praise each other, how not to hate each other, how to love each other. So, as I told you that this poem is in the form of an obituary, an elegy. It has 3 sections and each one of them follows a different stanza form and a rhyme scheme. The first section, as we discussed, describes the wintry afternoon of the death of the poet when, while he was still alive, the rumors of his illness merged with the rumors of his death. The second section of the poem is more close to the poet's life and expresses his conflicts and conflicting loyalties and aspirations. The poet's resentment against the growing disabilities of the age, his involvement in the Irish national movement, and his poetic desires are referred to in this section. And the third or the last section is a comment on the value of art and is a formal farewell to Yeats. So, in the end, the poet W.H. Auden is hopeful that still poets will be teaching good to the world. Even in the dark times, they will follow their duty, they will stick to their moral obligation. Thank you.